Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles to people throughout the world. You can learn more about the Three Principles Global Community at 3pgc.org. Today, we have Dr. William Pettit with us. And Dr. Pettit is a recognized educator in the Three Principles intervention and has presented at many national and international conferences and consulted to numerous clients both nationally and internationally. With his wife, Dr. Linda Pettit, Drs. Pettit are co-owners of Three Principles Intervention, LLC. Dr. Pettit presented the three universal principles of mind, consciousness, and thought as the essence of his psychiatric practice since 1983. And as of June 2017, this month, we're still in June, right? Dr. Pettit have relocated to Phoenix, Arizona, I believe to be with your new grandchild. So that's exciting. Congratulations. Okay, we got that muted. All right, so thank you so much for joining us, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, I feel like some of the other old timers that say, you know, after 34 years, I'm concerned that I'm just going to, people have heard me speak so many times that I don't want to just say the same things over, so I'll just see what comes. You know, the title that I put was "Never Broken, Nothing Lacking," and I can't emphasize that too much. That there is no one who is broken, and that there is no one that is lacking. And I'm glad to talk. I'll talk about that in many ways. The other subtitle that I think I put was how, and I should really have maybe added innocently, how we innocently make ourselves sick, both physically and mentally often, and how we innocently make ourselves sick, and how not to do that, or how to see the solution to that. And not do that. And I think I indicated a couple of things that I thought were really important in that journey, and to the two that I mentioned, I think that Bonnie put up was the importance of psychological innocence. The idea that given the level of understanding that people bring to a situation at any time, and the feeling level that they're in, and the level of understanding that they have as they face any challenge in their life, they literally, every human being throughout time, and I know people always want to look for exceptions, but to me, this is, you know, and I always ask people not to believe what I say, because all I can do is share what I see the way I see it. And I'm not asking anyone to believe what I say. I would ask you to listen, like Mr. Banks used to say, is being a listener, if you just take on somebody else's belief, you become a follower. I certainly don't want any followers, and Mr. Banks didn't either. But if you become a listener, where you listen quietly, and you listen inside yourself from your own wisdom, and you see something for yourself, you have an insight, then it's yours. It's nobody else's. And so psychological innocence to me is just a fact that every human being, given their level of understanding that they bring to each moment, and the feeling level that they're in, they make the best decision they see that they can do. Not necessarily that they see. They may say, well, I knew there was a better thing to do, I just didn't do it. Well, if they would have experienced the ability at that moment to do the other thing, they would have done it. And I think psychological innocence is so important, because not seeing psychological innocence, one is burdened by the past, heavily burdened by the past. They're burdened through, to me, two main or three main channels, I think, that people get burdened by. They get burdened by guilt, by things that they've done. In their retrospectoscope, they say, how could I have done that? What was I thinking? I don't think there's many of us as human beings that haven't had that feeling of, I wish I could rewind the film, and because now I have enough insight that I could make a different decision, a different action. So guilt, I think resentment, people innocently hold on to pain from things that have happened in their life, or the things that other people have said or done. And many times feel like it's important that they hang on to that pain, because if they don't, if they really come to peace with it, they're somehow condoning or making all right the behavior of the other person, which is farthest thing from the truth. But as Mr. Banks says in that wonderful chapter on love and forgiveness, he says, when you come to that place, you see with the innocence and the lostness of the person that was harmful to you. One of the sayings that often comes to me, and as I work with people, is that only hurting people hurt other people. I'll say that again. Only hurting people hurt other people. No one who's in a lighthearted, loving, joyful state of mind. And I ask us, each one of us, to reflect for ourselves, not to stare at it, but to look at the times that we've been hurtful to others. I don't think that anyone will see a time that they were full of a joyful, lighthearted, loving feeling at that moment.
Yeah.
So psychological innocence, I think, has a lot to do with coming to peace. The other thing that has a lot to do with coming to peace is seeing the role of wisdom and seeing the power and the depth of what that is. And the third thing is, and I'll go into that as I go into the principles, but the third thing that comes to mind is what I call your instrument panel. And I'll give a story that I've told other times, but it seems to be a very powerful one for people. When I was a Navy flight surgeon during the Vietnam War and in operational readiness, I had an example to see the pilots that understood to trust their instrument panel and those that didn't, and the results of that. And our instrument panel is our feeling level. My good friend Keith Blevins these days is focused on the very important thing that we are feeling our thinking 100% of the time. That's a profound statement, but it's true. We are feeling our thinking 100% of the time, not 82%, not 67.54, 100% of the time. And if we really come to know that with a capital N, not just know it intellectually, then when we're in less than a lighthearted feeling, let alone in a troubled feeling, we will know to leave our thinking alone. We will know that as best as we know to do it. Now, leaving your thinking alone is very, very different from trying to change your thinking. It's very, very different from distracting yourself from your thinking. It's very, very different from trying to fight your thinking and get the thoughts out of your head. Very, very different. Leaving your thinking alone assumes an understanding of the three principles of mind, thought, and consciousness, that you know your true nature, as Sid would say, and Elsie is Chipman are so good at saying that your true nature is a spiritual nature. Your true nature is that you're made of universal energy, that energy that was there before the Big Bang. I have no problem myself with calling that word divine energy, because I don't know what else you can call that energy that was there before creation, before the Big Bang, before however you see creation coming to be. Most all belief systems or understandings know that there was a time when there was no form, there was no universe, there was only a formless, intelligent energy, which I think there's tremendous evidence that formless, intelligent energy is a loving energy. Mr. Banks was apt to say that divine mind, or universal mind, was pure love and understanding. And I'll make a case for that in my own efforts during today. So in answer to the questions that even that were brought earlier, that if one really understands the principles, the idea of recurring thoughts keeping you in a loop becomes, it's just not, you don't care. You become less attached to the content of your thinking. I sometimes, if I get too tired, I have thoughts that, if acted on, would end me up in prison. Thoughts of violence, thoughts of hurting others severely, thoughts of hurting myself. I'm much better at taking better care of myself than I used to be. But to me, when I would get exhausted, I would, and some thoughts that would be very, very bizarre. But the difference is now, as I have a deeper understanding of the principles, and I don't claim to have a deep understanding, it's just deeper than it was 34 years ago. I still feel that I'm probably somewhere between first and second grade. But that's okay, because it's meant a tremendous difference in my life. It's interesting, the research on cognitive behavior therapy, and in a minute I'm going to go into the principles, at least my take on it, and many of you have probably watched videos of me, and there's one on right now on the three principles, and I can't say the website, Elizabeth Lovius's website. But there's the research on cognitive behavior therapy, which is the kind of the what's seen as the gold standard now. Is the focus of cognitive behavior therapy, as most people may know, is trying to change the content of your thinking. So you have homework, and you have to examine whether the thoughts you're having are overgeneralizations, or catastrophizing things, making them worse than they are. And so there's all kinds of homework and trying to reframe your thinking. And it's kind of like trying to change the cookie after it's already been baked. You know, it's the cookie is the cookie. Once you think a thought, it's there. And there's interesting research that shows that they took, and I may not have the exact amount, but I think they took 200 people that had recovered from their depression during their course of cognitive behavior therapy. And then they took 100 people that relapsed. Now, I'm not saying that half of the people, they just took 100 people that relapsed. And they took 2 years, within 2 years, and they took 100 people that did not relapse from their from their depression, that stayed non-depressed, at least did not meet criteria for depression. And by the logic of cognitive behavioral therapy, it would be that the people that relapsed were having many more negative thoughts. Does that resonate with people, that they had more negative thinking going on in their head, whereas the people that didn't relapse were having less negative thinking going on in their head? And to their surprise, when they did the research, by all the tools that they have to measure the amount and the number and the hours of the day and of negative thinking, there was absolutely no difference between the amount of negative thinking that the people that relapsed had versus the people that did not relapse. That was surprising to them, because it went against the theory that the problem is having negative thoughts occur in your head. And what they found was, what was the difference? The difference was that the people that didn't relapse had what they called decentered from their thinking. That's their word, decentered. They didn't care that they were having negative thoughts. It was irrelevant. They had seen beyond what was being taught to them, because divine wisdom or universal wisdom is, universal mind is at work within each one of us, trying to bring us home, to me, trying to bring us home to a peaceful, joyful feeling, because that's our home. That's what we are as divine energy. So some of these people that, as they listened to cognitive behavior therapy, they saw beyond the therapy. They may not have even been conscious of it, but the effect was that they no longer were bothered by having negative thoughts. It was irrelevant. They saw, as Mr. Banks points out, and they may not be able to elicit this, but in The Missing Link, Mr. Sidney Banks says very early on that so many people don't understand the fact that the brain and the mind are two entirely different things. Page 32, some believe the brain and the mind are the same, but there has to be a power behind the brain to make it function. The brain and the mind are two entirely different things. The brain is biological. The mind is spiritual. The brain acts like a computer. Whatever you put into it is all you get out. This is logic. He goes on to say, and then I'll stop reading, but an important thing to realize is that universal mind and personal mind are not two minds thinking differently, but two ways of using the same mind. What he's pointing to there is that there is one mind. The mind of God, the mind of universal mind, whatever you want to call that. There is one mind. Every human being uses the power of that one mind, and we get a free will so that we can use that power how we choose to use it. We're not robots. We literally have the free will to pay attention to any thought we want to, and nobody can make us not do it. Free will is a powerful, powerful thing. Keeps us from being a robot. It allows us to live our life as individuals. And with over 8 billion people on the planet, there is not two people that are using mind, thought, and consciousness in the same way. That's incredible. It's like remember they told you as children that there was no two snowflakes that are exactly the same? Pretty amazing. I suspect it's true. Maybe that was one of the lessons that we're trying to let us know about separate realities. That we're all using this power, these three gifts of mind, thought, and consciousness to create our own personal movie. And this is such a difference. This is such a difference from the present model, the present paradigm, what they call the present paradigm, the set of beliefs. I had a person close to me who was recently hospitalized in a mental health hospital, a person that I knew very well. And I was allowed by their choice to come to some of the meetings. And it was a young person, 14 or 15 years old. And just to hear the language of the psychologist and the psychiatrist, you knew that it made me clear that in the next 2 years that I will not be traveling and going places, at least at the present time. I don't see a sense in that until I have a book at the publishers for publication. Because there has to be a dialogue started of the power of understanding these three principles to heal anybody, to bring people back to their mental well-being. That's their birthright, and that what we're made of. Because even the homework that they gave, they didn't say things like, what things do you stress yourself out about? Huh? They said, what things stress you out? The message being that it's the external events, it's the external challenges that create the stress, rather than what you're doing with these incredibly beautiful, powerful gifts of mind, thought, and consciousness. What you're doing from the inside out to create mental stress for yourself. I've got somebody asking me to further explain that universal mind are not two minds thinking differently, but one mind used differently. I mean, one mind. So again, I'll just say, I'm not, as people know, that I'm not at 75 years of age, I'm not a computer genius at all. Far from it. I navigate the best I can, and I learn little by little. And but I do know that you know it's like, if you will, that there was a main computer that we're all hooked up in, and we're all using the power of that main computer in our own individual way, in our own software, if you will. So we've all got our own individual software that we're operating with. And if we understand, as we understand the principles and have insights into the understanding of the principles, we have no problem changing our software, our programs. You know, we all get born with a starter kit, or we all, after birth, the grain of truth in what Freud saw is that as we do go through childhood and adolescence and we have experiences, we do make decisions about life and about the world. And that, if you will, that's our starter kit. But sadly, many people die with their starter kit intact. They haven't re-examined it. They haven't understood what a starter kit was, that it was just a set of beliefs that might have allowed them to survive difficult time when you were going through early challenges in life. So let me briefly do the three principles as I see them. And again, I'm not going to spend the whole time on it. There's many places where myself and people like Elsie and my wife Linda, I think, speaks of the principles with an incredible clarity. But so mind, thought, and consciousness. So to me, universal mind or divine mind is just speaking to that intelligent energy that was there before creation of form, before the Big Bang. And that, we'll call that divine mind, universal mind. And then divine thought was that, and it's a metaphor to try to explain when mind activated divine thought, it created form. And that form has slowly taken the form that we have now over 14.6 or 13.8 or whatever it is billion years. which last time I looked is a really long time, we have what we have presently. And but everything that exists has to be made of the formless energy that was there before form. It has to have as its root, its foundation is that it is divine energy in disguise. It is universal, if people feel more comfortable with universal. It is that universal energy, formless energy, now in disguise. And it's almost like that divine mind or universal mind is trying to give us clues. I think of it's like it's constantly leaving clues to help us understand what we are and what the universe is. So that we have now in quantum theory, you see that there are many things that are going in and out of formlessness back into form. And they're puzzled by that. The first one was the photons, that in 1 minute they're little packages and in another minute they're formless energy. And is it quantum? Is it a energy? Is it formed or is it formless? And it's going in and out. And that's, to me, trying to let us know that as Mr. Banks even says, a lot of people come to awareness that they're made of divine energy. So they think divine energy is some formless energy within themselves, and that the body is something different. He says, but they're the same thing. The body is that same formless energy in disguise. Everything is formless, is divine energy. And as we see that, a number of things start to happen. We see the oneness to life. If enough people ever saw the oneness that we're all the same energy. We may have a little more or less melatonin in our skin, and we may have be different sexes, we may have to be different heights, we may be different but I guarantee you we are all the same. We are the same. We are human beings who are divine energy, who can create the illusion of separateness via our thinking. One of my favorite quotes, and I always question whether or not to say who the quote was by. So this time I'm not going to say it. Some of you know it. It's not too long, but it is, maybe 6 or 7 sentences here. Or let's see, I'm actually going to tell you who it is, because it's surprising to me. The quote is from Albert Einstein. And here's the quote. A human being is part of the whole, called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. He or she experiences himself or herself, and it's written as him, but you know that I'm saying that we're all he and she's are human beings. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separate from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This is long before Sid ever had his experience in 1973. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal decisions and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Because nature itself is that divine energy in disguise. I love hearing David Ellery talk about how the trees communicate to each other through their roots. I spent many years as a tree surgeon, and how one tree miles away might be attacked by a fungus and start to change its acidity and everything to deal with that fungus to try to combat it, but in the same time send messages along its roots so that the trees down from it can pass on the word that there's a fungus in the area, there's an enemy in the area. Very interesting. Now, if everything is whole, that fungus serves a function too. You know, it's fascinating. And some people have a problem or they get a little uneasy thinking that we are divine energy because of the beliefs that people have about what they call God is. And I'm certainly not going to tackle that all today because that's a huge one. And it's why some people, when they first hear the three principles and they really see the spiritual nature of it, they say, well, wait, this is a religion. But it's not a religion. It has no dogma. Nobody is asked to believe anything. It's put out as an understanding of what the universe is and what we are as human beings and how we create our experience. But no one is asked to believe anything. You're asked to, if you will, to listen and then see for yourself from your own inner wisdom what's true for you. But the reason that I see that people often call it a religion, because it changes to the deeper that people see the principles, it changes what they see as the divine. I know one young man said to my wife Linda, Dr. Linda Pettit, down in where she was practicing, he said after 3 sessions and after reading The Missing Link and watching a couple of Mr. Banks's videos, he said, if anybody would have helped me see the nature of God or in this way, I would not have called myself an atheist all these years. I would not have called myself an atheist. But he saw through a lot of the dogma, you know. I kiddingly say, and and in no way, please throw away anything I say that you find offensive and just say, well, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But I think that someday that the great religions, all of which think that they are chosen by God, by what they call God, I'm reminded of, I heard speak many years ago, I heard speak one of the savants, the autistic savants that, and we can talk about what autism is too, because it's not a mental illness, it's just probably an evolutionary advancement in our computer system that people don't understand at this point. And the people that do bring out the incredible wisdom of these people. But this young man was one of the 2 people that somebody might help me here. I'm trying to think of his name. Dustin Hoffman, when he played the Rain Man, he spent 3 months, I think it was 3 months, with 2 different families. And I heard this young man speak, and I won't go at a college, a university, and I won't go into the details because he was incredible what he could do with, his memory was incredible. But concepts were not something that were easy for him. And so people kept asking him about his favorite this or his favorite that. And finally he said to them, I have no favorites. And to this woman, he said, ma'am, he says, I have no favorites and you're one of them. Which I think was really cute. I have no favorites and you're one of them. And I think that which we call God sometime is going to say to the different leaders of the religions that they're going to see, he's going to say, I have no favorites and you're one of them. Because the recognition that every one of them are trying to acknowledge the awe that they experience and the reverence for that which was there, which is behind everything. But then they've all created this incredible dogma and rituals that they've tied to it. But that's, again, feel free to, you can even excerpt that, Bonnie, if it causes hate mail. But anyway, so let me take the 3 principles. Here we are, 38 minutes into it, and I'm defining the principles as I see them. So mind, divine mind, the energy, the intelligent energy of all things. Divine thought, that ability, that power, that gift that's even given to us, that as divine thought created the universe, we are creating a universe within our heads every moment of our life via the use of divine thought. We are creating a universe. I've never said that before, I don't think, but I just saw that in this moment. That we are creating a universe, every one of us, are creating a universe within our bodies via the use of thought every moment of our life. The first paragraph on the chapter in The Missing Link on thought, I have had many people as I worked at the university, at the medical school, and was on the consultation liaison service for 7 years. I had many electricians, carpenters, plumbers, many tradesmen, just from this paragraph, have a powerful insight into the principles. They said, one of them said, I almost fell off of my hospital bed as I read this paragraph. And the paragraph is simply this. It's the first paragraph in the chapter on thought. Thought is a divine tool. Nothing more, nothing less, only a tool. A wise person, like a good tradesman, uses this tool to the best of his or her ability. Thought is a divine gift which serves you immediately after you are born. Thought is the creative agent we use to direct us through life. The power of thought is not self-created. We didn't at some point decide to think. We're born, we're thinking beings. Consciousness is that incredible awareness that allows us. It makes everything. It is as Keith would say, we constantly live in the feeling level of our thinking. So it's bringing to life every thought that we think looks real to us. Consciousness is our special effects system. We have a better special effects system than Steven Spielberg or George Lucas ever dreamt of. They try to replicate it as best as they can in their special effects. But ours, as a human being, our special effects system is incredible. And that's what so many people that have had some traumatic experience, that they don't understand that they might understand it at an intellectual level, but when they come to understand it as truly understand it, the memories or the movies that are made from their past traumatic experiences, they lose their power. And for most people, that's incremental. For most people, in speaking in Star Trek terms, the memory, as they learn to leave the memory alone, and they know at some level it's now just a movie that they're making in their head from a past experience, the more that they see that as they have incremental insights, then if you will, the Star Trek force, the power field of that memory lessens until I can't tell you how many, over the last 34 years, 100 people have walked into my office and said, you know, doctor, that memory that I've been bothered by, it's neutral now. I don't have to not watch certain movies. I don't have to worry about going certain places. I don't have to worry about whether that memory comes, because that memory has no power now. So their gift of consciousness that allowed them, that literally brings every memory to life as a reality, allowed them, that gift of consciousness also allowed them to truly see with a capital S that was just a movie now. It wasn't happening in this moment. So consciousness is also the ability for us to become aware, as Elsie Spittle would say, and Sid would say, as that we are divine energy. It's the gift of consciousness that allows us to see that we are what we seek, as Sid says. You know, some people feel uneasy, and often it's not a perfect metaphor. No metaphor is that's in form, that's trying to explain the formless. But saying you're a drop in the ocean is not the same as saying that you're the ocean. But it's very clearly saying that you're not separate from the ocean. You are intimately connected to the ocean and the power of the ocean. And the power of the ocean, that of divine mind, if you will, is what wisdom is a manifestation of divine mind. And wisdom is always, every moment of our lives, is trying to guide us at the level of understanding that we're at. And I often tell people that even things that they have seen as mental illnesses depression, anxiety, panic attacks. We don't have time to talk about it today, but those are all things that we call illnesses. They're alarm systems that we've been given to let us know when we're using these gifts in a way that they were not meant to be used. I'll say that again in a different way. If you and I put our hand on a hot stove, as soon as we feel the burn from the hot stove, we pull our hand away because we know we know we don't want to do that. We feel pain. Well, whenever I feel emotional pain, I now used to get frightened because I did go in and out of clinical depression for 21 years before I met Mr. Banks in 1941. I was 41 years old in 1983. And I'd been going in and out of that because I was frightened by my negative thoughts. And I would always try to fight them, and I'd end up in a spiral, and I'd end up in a clinical depression, often almost immobilized. But now, if I get caught up in emotional pain, I know that there is one person on earth, one entity that has the power to create emotional pain for me. And it's me. It's the person that's in my underbritches. And last I looked, there's only room for one of us. I know it's me innocently using these gifts of mind, thought, and consciousness in a way that they weren't meant to be used. And I get excited now because I know if I allow my mind to quiet, if I leave my thinking alone, if I know enough to keep my mouth shut and my hands to myself and leave my thinking alone, that I will get back to my mental well-being. And I will likely have more insights into the nature of these three principles. Mr. Banks said, it was apt to say that that there is an infinite number of insights into the nature of these three principles. An infinite number of insights. Wow. Last I looked at my math book, that's a really, really big number. Infinite. So that when I experience emotional pain, I know that it's about going back and getting quiet. Now, I tell people, I go back to Mr. Banks. Mr. Banks's 6 books. Sometimes people want to talk to me and they want to pay me a fair amount of money to meet with them. And I say, have you read Mr. Banks's books? Well, I kind of looked at The Missing Link, I say, go back and read his 6 books twice and watch his 3 35 to 40 minute videos on the three principles global community that are free. After that, if you have questions, you come and we'll talk, and your money will be much better spent. And I know that there's now over 105 books written on the principles. 105. I would go back if I was a physicist and I wanted to learn about relativity. I would go back to Einstein's 1905 papers. I would not be reading a whole bunch of the second, third, and fourth generation physicists. I might do that later after I fully understood the insights that Mr. Einstein had, Dr. Einstein. The same way with Mr. Banks. Once I feel like I really am on, then I might go ahead and read some of the others. Because if I listen to them quietly, I might awaken even more of those insights. So with this being said, the one thing I'll say to the questions, the person that's facing very real things about money and decisions and stuff, is that the answer is always going to be in quiet and in deepening your level of understanding of the principles. In a practical way, here's what I would say. If you're traveling from New York to Los Angeles in total darkness, let's say the incredible volcanoes had erupted so that there was total darkness from New York to all you would need is a car that gave you the next 100 feet, that had the lights on the car. All you had to do was go 100 feet at a time, and you would make it whichever direction you were going to your destination. So when I wake up in the morning, even right now, as I feel we're transplanted here to Phoenix, and we've got all kinds of things that I won't go into that we have to make decisions about. Each day, what I might do is allow my mind to get quiet and put down the next 1, 2, or 3 things that I see to do today. Sometimes it's only one. What's the next thing I see to do? Now, what's the next thing I see to do? I might even make a plan of 4 or 5 things, but in the process, then wisdom might, in a quiet mind, might say, you know, before you do that 3rd thing, here's another thing that I think would be good to address. If we allow wisdom to guide us, wisdom will guide us, every one of us, every moment of our life. So with that, the last thing I'll say is, I know some people have had difficulty with us calling it 3 principles intervention. It's not an intervention. And I'm going to go to the dictionary, and we might change that. But the intervention, as I remember my Latin, means something that comes into a situation and changes things. And having insights into the understanding of the 3 principles, the nature of the 3 principles changes things. So in that way, I see it that level, that increasing understanding of the principles is an intervention. It's not that the principles are an intervention, but insight into the nature of these principles certainly changes things, changes incredibly the internal experience that one lives in. And to me, we have a choice. We either, and we haven't gone into, but to me, it lets us know that we are spiritual beings, and even death loses its sting because we know that we're going home. We're going home. There's nothing to fear. And that's a whole nother lecture. But to me, that the freedom from fearing death allows one to deal with losses much more easily. And it also allows us to live life fully while we're here. But if we're living life constantly fearing our own death or somebody else's, we're living in misery. We're living in misery and then dying. And I would much rather choose to live in a lighthearted, joyful, loving state of mind and then die and take my chances, because I think they're pretty good that we're going back home. So I'm going to stop with that. I think I told Bonnie that I'd do 45 minutes and I've gone 52, but I apologize, but I'm willing to take some questions if people have them.
If you have a question, you can unmute yourself by scrolling down to the lower left-hand corner of the screen.
Hi, I have a question.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon. I don't know, it could be after, where are you?
I'm in San Diego.
Oh, okay, so it's morning still to you, huh?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
With this understanding,
And your name? I'm sorry, your name?
Jennifer. Hello.
Jennifer. Okay, Jennifer. And you have you been in learning the principles for some time, or?
A little over 2 years.
Okay. Okay.
And I was just on a call with Michael Neal's group this morning, and I had one of those moments that everything's derailing in my mind, and it feels wildly exciting and uncomfortable.
Okay.
And it's like, what's real? And that's my question.
What's real? I suppose it depends on how you define reality. You know, I mean, we're all living in the experience of our thinking every moment. That's all that we can do. You know? So do your best you can. I think people, I think in my experience that people in a lighthearted, loving feeling tend to see things more uniformly than people that are in a stressed out state of mind. See if this makes sense. And some of you might remember, I think is it Tolstoy or Dostoevsky, that that opens Anna Karina with, I think it's something like, every happy family is happy in the same way. Every dysfunctional family is dysfunctional in its own unique way. So I see the puzzled look on your face.
Yes, puzzled.
Okay, so here's what I would say about what's reality. I would say, if we have 52 people on this call today of different sexes, probably of different religions, of different heights, weights, level of melatonin, et cetera, et cetera. I would say that all of us are more like each other when we're at peace and a lighthearted, loving feeling than we are like ourselves when we're not. So that the reality, what's real, if you ask all of us in a lighthearted, loving feeling, the view that we have of reality, it would be much more similar than any one of us in a troubled state of mind.
That hits home.
Does that hit home? Because our feeling level comes out our eyeballs.
Yes.
It affects the way we see. It affects what we see. Now, like my spouse always, not that she gets upset, but the metaphor I kiddingly use is that if a person wakes up in a really troubled state of mind because they were worrying and stewing about things before they went to bed, and now they're at a lower feeling level, they could wake up in the morning and look at their mate or their spouse or their partner and go, what the hell was I thinking? Mm-hmm. And then they go to work, where a place where they've worked for 10 years, that they've loved the people that they work with, and they go, I never realized these people are jerks. These people are jerks. And they go down to the breakfast table beforehand, and the kids are yelling, and they're not happy, and they won't eat their cereal, and they're going, how many more years do I have until they're 18? Okay? Now, they get a good night's rest. They have enough sense to leave their thinking alone and not fight it, not feed it, and they get a good night's rest that night. They don't drink 5 beers to go to sleep. They go to sleep because they're tired. And they wake up the next morning in a nice feeling because they're back home, and they look at their spouse, and they may even have a couple of tears come into their eyes, saying, how could I be so lucky? How did this happen? And they look at their children at breakfast, even with all the chaos, and their heart is just filled. They're just filled with, and they go to work, and they see, instead of jerks, they see the uniqueness of each individual. And yeah, they're human beings like we are. They're not perfect, but they feel like, wow, what a wonderful place to work. Now, reality out there has not changed. Mm-hmm. Did you say Jennifer? Is that it? Yeah, the reality has not changed. There's a book that that many people know. It's a book of poetry that my late wife, who died in 2000 after 31 years of marriage, my wife and I were both widowed about 3 years when we met 14 years ago. But she wrote over a weekend after we adopted our child. She wrote over a weekend almost 70 pages of rhymed poetry in iambic pentameter. Had you ever heard of it? Of the book it's called Coming Home, actually the same as, it's a book of poetry though. And I've got it on CreateSpace so that it's going to be available, but I have to finish her biography and a description of the poem. But there's a poem on a low mood, and it talks about, and I'm going to just read the last paragraph. What a day, any day. And it talks about that as she gets caught up in a low mood, because from stewing or thinking about something in a negative way. I recalled at times, let's see. Oh, here it is. I don't live alone. I have kids and a mate, and they seem to know all the things that I hate. Today in this mood, I was sure of their aim, to break all my spirit and drive me insane. By the time Bill gets home, I'll jump because it's about 4 pages long. By the time Bill gets home, I've had over 8 hours to give this bad mood some incredible powers. His smile looks just like a glower to me. No longer a man, but a monster I see. I say, hello, honey, how are you? That's what she sees, right? I keep meeting back feelings the whole day through. I am miserable, but I have no clue that the mood I am in has colored the way that I see everything. What a day, what a day. And here's a one page, I won't read the one on gratitude, but here's the one page. What a day any day has to offer to me depends on the mood that I'm in, I can see. I have found that a bad mood can change very quick because the walls that surround it are just a thought thick. A thought thick, a bad mood is just a thick thought that I let weigh me down and makes me feel caught. A thought thick, one thought through, just an instant away is a feeling that freshens and brightens each day. What a day any day has to offer to me is my choice when I know that thoughts change what I see. So a day full of love and good feelings I choose. And you know where I find this? Inside gratitude. Now, I think this was written in 1984 when we were just learning the principles. And I would say that what allows you to find gratitude is a deep understanding of the principles where you know when to leave your thinking alone. Does that help? Because we do see a different reality in different feelings. And if once we lose a lighthearted, loving feeling, we'll know that is going to be distorted by our own personal thinking. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. The poetry was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's called Coming Home by Sue Pettit. And like I said, I hope in the next few days over the weekend to get that fully released from Amazon CreateSpace.
Thank you.
I'm aware of the time, but Bonnie said we could go over a little bit, and I'll try to be as concise as I can with my answers. If anybody has another question or.
Hi, can I talk? I'm not sure if you can hear me or not.
I can.
It's Marie Francoise, and thank you for answering my question, kind of. It's like I hear in the moment, and then it goes away. And
have you read Mr. Banks's books? Have you read all of his books?
Yes, not all of them. That's a good prescription. I love to read, and actually somebody else said, oh, why don't you read since you like to read? And
have you watched the free videos on the 3PGC community?
Yes, I have, but not recently. But I could totally.
I would watch them twice through as quietly as you can. That's my own. I mean, only do that if because I don't really give advice. But if that's the thought that comes to me, if that feels right to you, you follow your own wisdom. Your wisdom's going to guide you. But I will say that any consternation you have, any concern, is just because you're innocently allowing yourself to be at the mercy of your brain, instead of knowing that your mind is in charge. And the more that you have a deeper insight, the direction is a deeper insight into the principles that will allow you to be comfortable not knowing. And that will allow you, once you're comfortable with not knowing, with being in the unknown, you're on the verge of knowing. Because once you do that, you allow your mind to quiet, and then mind can come through, divine mind, universal mind can come through very quick. It's like I experience my life more and more that I get 3x5 cards. Bill, have you thought of this? Oh, no, I hadn't. Thanks. And your life gets gentle because you don't have to figure it out yourself. See, if all you have is analysis, it's like a carpenter going to work to build a house, and he opens his thing and all he has is a hammer. Well, everything's going to start looking like a nail.
Okay.
And all I used to have was analysis. Analyze. I've got to figure this out. I've got to figure this out. I've got to figure this out.
Yeah.
So metaphorically, I was going around in circles for 41 years, running around the circuit, the soccer fields in a circle, saying, I've got to figure this out. I've got to figure this out. And I think it was because I'd been taught that God helps those that help themselves. And that's all I knew to do. And the grain of truth in that for me is that the way to help myself is to allow my mind to quiet. Allow being not an active word. It's a passive word. And it denotes that the natural, we have cork in our butt. People make fun of me because of my metaphors. We have cork in our butt. When you're feeling stressed and distressed, it's like you've innocently weighed yourself down with thought, to where now you're 5 feet underwater with a 3-foot snorkel.
So deserving doesn't come into play at all? Like,
Deserving?
yeah, like you say, well, you don't get what you say you want. You get what you think you deserve. And you might not. So if you're somewhere,
That's a degree from MSU, and it's not from
MSU?
Michigan State University. It's making stuff up. You're making all that up.
Really? So I don't have to worry about my deserving level? And
No, you're divine energy.
self-esteem?
You're the same as all of us. You're divine energy. I'm sorry, you don't get to be different. We're all the same energy. Yeah. Get off being special, even if it's being special in a negative way. I even tell people guilt is incredibly egotistical. And they say, how can you say that guilt is egotistical? I'm beating myself up. I say, who are you thinking about?
Yourself.
Yourself. I did it for years. I hope this was helpful.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Life is too important to take seriously. Way too important. Seriousness has nothing to do with being responsible. When I get caught up in seriousness, I lose everything vital to life. I lose my compassion for myself. I lose my compassion for others. I lose my sense of humor. I lose my joy. I lose my ability to give and receive love with full capacity. That's what happens when seriousness is the most underdiagnosed mental illness there is. Anyway, next.
Hey, Willie, it's Brother Patrick here.
Hey, Patrick, I can see you. I love my brothers. My brother always has a new hat.
That's because I haven't taken a shower and my hair looked like pretty rough.
Bad hair day, huh?
Exactly. I just wanted to say hello and how much I love you. And I think Sister Helen Rose would be very, very proud of you that you went Latin today. And I look forward to seeing you in Connecticut. I do not have a question. I just want to tell you I love you.
Well, you know, I have to brag here. I actually received the superior, the highest rating in the state Latin contest my junior and senior year. So thanks to Sister Helen Rose. Yeah.
Who were you sitting next to?
Yeah, who was I sitting next to? Very nice, very nice. That's what brothers are for. Thank you. I love you. Anyone else?
I have a question. Oh, wait, let me put myself. Hi.
Hi. Gail. No? Your name?
Wendy.
Wendy. Hi, Wendy.
I have a question. I have a client that's 18 years old. I actually don't know my question, but I just wanted any of your insight into it. And she has been diagnosed with a lot of things. And she has violent thoughts and intense thoughts. And I'm working with her and it's doing really well, but I just wanted to hear any of your insights around that, because I don't expect to ever have more clients like that. It's not my thing, but I adore her. I think she's brilliant, but she takes her thoughts super seriously. So any insight you have, it's a little scary to me that she has so many clinical diagnoses, and I'm not a doctor. But so anything that you have to tell me that you can share about that.
Yeah. Yeah, tell me, it's Wendy?
Yeah.
Wendy, tell me a little bit about the degree and of your involvement with the three principles.
Oh, we met in London. I have been involved for about, I'd say 5-6 years, and I am finishing up a menteeship with the Pranskys, and I have cancer, and I've spoken a few times in LA and in London a couple times, and
So you've read Mr. Banks's books and
yeah,
watched the videos and stuff. Have you had this woman read Mr. Banks's books?
I've been encouraging her to, and I can do some more of that.
One thing that comes to mind that I do, whether it's with psychiatrists or with clients, you know, not too long ago, I had a person that was referred to me by a three principles person who had been depressed since they were 12, in their 50s, okay? No one had really sat down and read The Missing Link with them. By the third session, the person's depression was gone. I go through The Missing Link one page at a time. And then after each page, we take turns reading a page. This is what works for me. And then I ask questions. Is there anything that you have a question about, any insights? That book is so powerful. They can be reading The Enlightened Gardener or to me, Second Chance and Quest of the Pearl are incredibly powerful and spiritual. They're incredibly powerful. Second Chance was the first book that Mr. Banks read. I would think seriously, what I would do, and that's all it is not telling you what to do. Your wisdom will guide you. I would go with the missing link. Our sessions would be about one page at a time, or we might watch one of Mr. Banks's videos and then talk. But I would go through the missing link. If they wanted to, in between sessions, also read Second Chance, Quest of the Pearl, I would encourage them to do that. Because it's just about them seeing the fact that she's troubled by these thoughts and even having the violent thoughts. It's because of a lack of understanding of the principles. And there is one problem. It's chronic mental stress. As Mr. Banks says, that he says chronic mental stress and distress is to mental illness as damp and dark is to fungus. It makes it grow. And love and lightheartedness is to mental illness as sunlight and dry is to fungus. It eradicates it. So you want to rather than doing battle with the violent thoughts, you want to teach people the principles so they start experiencing more and more moments of love and lightheartedness. And the power of those thoughts dissipates like smoke into the wind. That would be the direction that I would say. And again, I think the key is direction, is the direction. But know that diagnoses are an attempt of people to try to describe where a person is. They have absolutely nothing to do with who a person is. And sadly, people start thinking that their diagnoses is who they are. I'm bipolar, or I'm a PTSD victim, or I'm a this or that. As I was finishing up my clinical work at the end of February, I had a woman in her mid-30s that came to me and she said, Dr. Pettit, when I came to you, not only was I on all these medications, but I had all these labels, PTSD survivor, panic disorder, bipolar, but she had all these diagnoses. She said, I OCD, that she was doing rituals a number of hours every day to try to deal with her anxiety that she was innocently creating with her thinking. She said, I have none of those diagnoses now. I'm feeling a love for my husband that I never dreamt I could have for another human being. I'm feeling a love for my children that I never thought that I could have for children, for my children. And so she said, I'm no longer a PTSD survivor or victim. I am none of that, because I see that the past truly does not exist except as a memory trace. I am whole. I am divine energy. I see that. I feel it. I experience it every day. Wow. So remember that diagnoses are an attempt by people at limited level of understanding to describe where a person is. It has nothing to do with who they are. We are all the same. We're all divine energy that's taken a form.
That's good.
Mr. Banks, as much as there is a focus these days on that we're feeling or thinking, he says in one of the, I think it's one of the tapes from Hawaii, he says, as important that is to realize that you're always feeling your thinking, that your feelings are just a dance of your thoughts through your limbic system and back through your senses. Understanding your true nature as divine energy is at least 1,000,000 times more powerful than knowing that you're thinking, you're feeling your thinking. I think a lot of people are lost that direction.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. I'm aware of the time. I think maybe it's probably a good time to be stopping. Do you think, Bonnie, or do you want to do one more?
I'm happy to stay as long as you want to answer questions. So.
Well, I can do one more, and then after that, if people want to consult, it's going to be at least 2 or 3 weeks before I get the people through my emails. But anyway, does anybody have one more question before we stop?
I have a question. Hi.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Lee. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Lee. Where are you, Lee?
New York, actually, Brooklyn, New
Okay.
York.
Okay.
I was wondering, like, how, like, I have trouble, like, making decisions, like that I know that it would be, I guess, the right one, like that I'm informed from a good place instead of being colored by, like, my negative thoughts and stuff.
Right.
Like, am I making a decision based on a fear I have, or to do this, or is it based on the possibility of something else?
Right. So your question is, how do I make better decisions, or what's your question?
I guess, yeah.
No, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Lee. Yeah.
No, yeah, that's it. Really.
Do you get kind of immobilized trying to decide what to do, or?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable telling me how much, what your exposure is to the principles and what reading you've done or not done, or?
Yeah. Well, I've read some stuff from. I'm middle of the Enlightened Gardener now, and I've read The Second Chance, and I've watched videos from Sydney Banks and you and some other practitioners, and read some other books from practitioners.
Okay. Have you read?
Every day.
Have you watched the videos that are on the 3pgc.org website that this is on right now? Have you? Because they're the only ones that have the. I mean, you can purchase them through Lone Pine Publishing, and they're very reasonable. The Hawaii tapes and the Long Beach tapes are, I think, about $80 for the 4 tapes. But there's a permission has been given to the Three Principles Global Community to have the Long Beach from the year 2000. When he was 70 years old, he finally agreed to be videotaped, because before that he said, I don't want followers. He was a very humble man. But they brought 100 people together, and they videotaped him over 2.5 days, and they edited it down to 4 videos. The first 3 are about 28 to 33 minutes, and the last one is 44 minutes. Have you watched those twice?
I think, yeah, actually, I have watched them.
I would encourage you to do it, because once you
I don't know about
see,
twice. Definitely.
okay, that once you see the principles deep enough, you start experiencing not making decisions in your life. Or making very, very few decisions. Can you still hear me? Because you're frozen on mine. Can you still hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can, yeah.
Okay. Because you stop having decisions, because decisions are made from the intellect. But what happens is you learn to allow your mind to quiet, and you live your life until you see what to do. And you do the next thing you see to do. And sometimes you have to act, because so you make this best decision you can, but you stay in the present moment. And in that moment, you will start having insights that allow you to see with clarity what to do next. And so you find yourself not making decisions, because a decision to me is when you're going, gee, do I weigh this or I weigh this? These are the advantages, these are the disadvantages. But when you see clearly what to do, it's not a decision. It's just seeing with clarity what to do next. Like Linda and I moving from a very beautiful place that we lived in Michigan, came to both of us in a quiet moment. We saw that at this point in our life, even though it would entail a tremendous amount of different things, So we'd have to do one thing at a time. That moving to Phoenix so that she could be near her only daughter's birth of her new son was the exact thing to do, you know. So I would just say that the answer is always the same. It's a deepening of the understanding. It's going through more doors of insight into these three principles. When I first learned this, every 6 months, I would say, now I understand these principles. And then 6 months later, I'd say, boy, I didn't before, but now I see these principles. And you realize that it is an infinite journey. It's an infinite journey. And, you know, we go through as many doors as we can. But the direction is always a quieter mind and a more positive feeling state. Love and understanding. Sid would say the real answer in the end is love and understanding. So, and you will access more and more wisdom to where you're making less decisions. You're just seeing what to do. Until then, you do the best you can. You make your decisions when you're as rested as you can be, and then you're in a more positive feeling state. You don't make decisions when you're upset or angry or fearful. You will find, I think, invariably that those decisions, you will regret many of them. This may be a good place to stop, Monty, huh?
Okay.
Okay? That's the best I got. That's the best I got, Lee. Okay.
Thank you so much for spending all this time with us. And
Oh, you're welcome.
I know I'm going to listen to this again because I was very occupied with making sure all the background noise was off, but wonderful.
Thank you.
Sharon, thank you.
Yeah.
And just want to remind everyone that the next webinar is July 13th with Erica Bugby. So hope to see you all then. And this will be up on YouTube by the end of the day. So.
Okay. Thanks again.